Colorado, home to some of the finest trout streams and rivers in the lower 48, and home to some of the best fly tyers as well. In the next few minutes, we'll visit with these artists as they create their signature fly patterns. We'll also join them as they fish Rocky Mountain National Park, the Frying Pan, the South Platte, the Arkansas, and the Colorado. Fly tying is part craft and part magic, binding bits of hair, fur, and feathers to a hook in an attempt to create something that will fool a trout requires a keen sense of observation. The best tyers are also avid fishermen who have a thorough knowledge of the life cycle of all of the various things that trout eat, and who have spent hours observing trout in their natural habitat. Each of the master tyers profiled in this show have made great contributions to their craft as creators of flies that fool trout. Flies that are designed to deceive.
I'm at Engle. I kind of specialize in small flies, which actually are pretty easy to tie. Once you get over the fact that they're small and you're going to have to wear maybe magnifying glasses or something, they're very easy to tie. So I specialize in them because that's what the fish want in the rivers I fish here on the Front Range of Colorado.
Ooh, boy. Here they come.
I'm going to tie a drowned Trico spinner. You want to come up with a pattern you would think that floats on the surface with the wings splayed out. And that's true, but what happens is as this hatch progresses, the better fish will learn that since these spent spinners are dead, they'll sink under the water surface a little. So I came up with this pattern to sink under the water surface just a bit. It'll sink maybe 3 or 4 or 5 inches. Okay, what I'm going to tie this drowned Trico spinner on is a Tiemco 2488 heavy wire hook. I'm going to tie the tails in first on this, and I'm going to use 3 synthetic fibers. And you can tie these sort of long, because they are on the natural. I like to hold the tails toward me because I'm going to roll that up over the top of the hook. Roll it up. Make a few wraps to hold it in place. Now I'm going to take my fingernail, push them up and separate them. Then I'm going to make a wrap around the first one. Keep this light, come under the hook, then cinch it down. This fly works great in 11 Mile Canyon. It works great below Spinney Mountain Reservoir in the South Platte River. Any place where there's tricos, this is going to be a good pattern. It's best if you fish it, like I said, it's made, eventually this will sink. It'll be on the surface for a while, but eventually it'll sink as it goes through the drift. So it's good to fish it behind a dun pattern or something like that, so you can see if you get a strike. Oftentimes, as the Trico hatch progresses, the larger fish will tend to take flies under the water's surface. Now, one of the big problems we have with small flies is getting too much stuff on the hook. And since I want this fly to sink, I've got the heavy wire hook. I've also going to tie a wire body. Now the wire body doesn't do a lot to helping this thing sink, but it makes the fly look good and it can't hurt. And this is just a small enameled black wire. There's a trick here that we will learn. I'm going to tie this in 2 wraps. Now I'm going to come to the other side of the wire. And the reason I'm doing this, the reason I left this longer tag end here, is because if I tie the wire in, wrap it all the way back, and then wrap over top of it, I may get too fat a body. This way I can just tie this thing straight in, and I guarantee you that it'll stay crimped down. And the key to that was coming to the other side of the wire. See, now this thing is set to go. And it's a small fly. And this will be the abdomen of the fly. Sight fishing these, that's what fly fishing's all about for my money. Whether you're fishing dry flies, nymphs, whatever. That's what it's all about. Now, rather than cut this wire, thing to do is to just twist it and it'll break. And that's going to give you a lot better finish than if you try to cut that off and then you'll have to try to crimp it down. You can cut this wire off because it's going to be under the abdomen of the fly if you want to cut it. I'm just going to break it. Okay, I'm building a base for the wings. Any kind of white synthetic. I use a synthetic called Zap wing fiber, and all it is it's like an Antron, but it's got little strands of like flashaboo in it. That was an interesting day because that was sort of the height of the guide season, and I do guide fishermen, and the day before had actually been pretty tough. And we got up there, we fished this fly and others, and nothing on the surface had changed. Nothing that you saw changed, but for some reason I thought the fish were a lot more receptive to a fly on the surface because we'd had a tough time the day before fishing it. But that was a great day. The fish at the beginning of the spinner fall, the fish actually were rising to spinners on the surface, but they quickly went to subsurface, to patterns that had sunk a little. That's where this one came in. And what I'll do is I'll cut these a little bit so that I can put the thorax of the fly on, and then I'll trim them again. But you got to be careful, because if you keep trimming and trimming and trimming, it's like cutting your sideburns. You'll cut one, you get shorter and shorter and shorter, and pretty soon you'll have no wings at all on your fly. So this is just to get some of the material out of the way. Now I'm just going to tie a black thorax on the fly. And this fly will sink, kind of has a neutral buoyancy. And in terms of material, black rabbit's the very best because it absorbs water. If you don't have black rabbit, whatever you have. Typically when I fish this fly, I will fish it behind a dun pattern or something that I can see. Maybe fish it behind a pair of shoot Adams. Once again, if the thorax is a little too big on this, that's not going to hurt you. These flies are all thorax and wing. This is just a simple X. And an interesting thing I've noticed with most of us who tie flies, we want to have these wings perfectly perpendicular to the hook shank. We want them to be real nice. In reality, if you seine the water when you're fishing this spinner fall, a lot of times these spinners, the wings will actually be pressed back along the body like that. And interestingly enough, that will happen to this fly when you fish it. Okay, I think that's pretty good. Like I said, you can always add more to the thorax. Now I'm going to whip finish that. I don't use any lacquer. I don't use any cement because these smaller flies are pretty easy to tie. And I just tie an extra fly or two, but they seldom fall apart. Then I'll trim these wings down a little, and the trick here is that you don't want to cut the tails off. That's what we want, a nice sparse wing. This guy, he'll float maybe 3 feet, start to sink, and then it'll be where you want it. A lot of times you'll just see a boil when the fish takes it. You won't see a nose come up. You'll actually see a boil on the surface.
Yeah. Right there.
Yeah.
Look at this. I gotta try to get this thing out of there.
it's in the bone where that's okay. That was fun.